There is confidence oozing out of the screen right now.
As there should be.
From Mahomes and you. Any chance he isn't himself on Sunday?
No. Sunday's going to be his masterpiece.
Oh.
So, listen, if you take Patrick Mahomes off the Kansas City Chiefs, they are a team with a Hall of Fame tight end, a all-pro, great defensive tackle, and a Hall of Fame coach, and a bunch of pieces. They are a 8-9, 9-8 team. Instead, they are the best team in football in the midst of a historic 5-year run. And I think Sunday he's finally, Brew, going to check off the one box he does not yet have checked off on his career resume. And that is a start to finish dominant Super Bowl. I think in his first Super Bowl, he was not great in the first half and then utterly brilliant in the second half. And I think in his second Super Bowl, he actually played far, far better than the numbers suggest if you watch that game. But the numbers are so drastic in a negative direction, you can't say it was a great game by him. I don't think it was a bad game by him, but certainly was not a start-to-finish great game. And if and when he does that, Brew, and this is what, in addition to the question, I want your reaction to. If and when he does that, plays a great Super Bowl and wins this game, he will have done something faster than any athlete I've ever seen, which is move past any contemporary rivals discussion to where he is only competing with ghosts. LeBron had to deal with LeBron versus Kobe, and then LeBron versus Durant, and then LeBron versus Steph. And once he dispatched all of them 15 years in, it then became, for a lot of people, LeBron versus Jordan. Tom Brady, it was Brady versus Manning for the better part of 12 to 15 years before Brady finally superseded that conversation, or it was Brady versus Montana and then Brady versus no one. Patrick Mahomes has started 5 years in this league. If he wins on Sunday, there is no longer any debate available about any active player. It is simply him versus the legends, Manning, Montana, and Brady, and I think that's what we're in store for after the performance on Sunday, Brew.
Yeah, I would agree with that last point you made. I talked about it yesterday. I said already, we don't think of him as competing with Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and these guys. He's competing with Brady and Montana and Peyton Manning and the likes of those guys. So, yeah, if he wins, I definitely agree with you, Nick. Now, of course, if Cincinnati were to go on and win 2 of the next 3 or 4 Super Bowls, then now all of a sudden you're competing with another contemporary in Burrow. But for the time being, he would be head and shoulders above everybody else that's playing right now. So I'm with you there. Where I'm not with you on, and he may give a masterpiece. I'm actually expecting him to play well. But on the question that Wildes gave, is any chance he doesn't play well or isn't himself, then sure, there's a good chance of that. There's a chance of that. I won't blame it on the ankle. And I won't blame it on, certainly not him melting down or the moment being too big, none of that. But as you alluded to, Nick, Patrick Mahomes has not always been Mahomesian in the Super Bowls. And look, you won't find this on the graphics that Nick puts up about Mahomes in the postseason. But Dusty put together a graphic that gives a fuller picture of Mahomes in the postseason, or in the Super Bowls at least. And Nick, Mahomes is not a high turnover guy, even though these aren't all turnovers. He's fumbled 3 times. He's thrown 4 interceptions in 2 Super Bowl games. So historically, as you said, you didn't point out all of this, but you alluded to he hasn't always been as great as usual in the Super Bowls. And of course, the last time we saw him against Tampa Bay, he wasn't himself because of the pressure that he got from Tampa Bay when his offensive line was banged up. Well, the line isn't banged up, and they do have a good offensive line, but Philadelphia obviously has an historic pass rush, and if they put constant pressure on Mahomes, Nick, then he certainly, especially missing some of his receivers, he certainly could have a mediocre day by his standards. I'm not saying I expect it, but it definitely is on the table.
See, I'm not worried about the ankle for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, it's been 22 days, and he said it's getting better. Reason number 2, I believe in Super Bowl adrenaline. Certainly for me as a viewer, I watch more intently, and I think that carries over to the players as well. Reason number 3, this is my favorite little statistic that came out of the playoff game against Jacksonville. If we can show the graphic there, Dusty. Dusty's in charge of all the graphics. On the game's final play from scrimmage, when he got the penalty, reached a top speed of 18 miles per hour on the scramble, fastest speed reached on any of his plays this postseason. To me, that says if he wants to or if he has to, he can turn it on, and I think the ankle feels better than it did there. So I think he's going to ooze confidence. Is it going to be a masterpiece? I don't know. But I don't think the ankle is going to be a storyline.
And even in that Super Bowl where they only scored 9 points and he threw a couple picks, both of the picks were off receivers' hands and tipped balls.
Not his fault.
I'm not saying it's not his fault. I'm simply I'm adding the context to it. There were 3 separate plays where he faced instantaneous pressure and finished the play flat on his back. And those plays ended with passes into the end zone, hitting receivers in the hands that got dropped. So even in that game, with that offensive line, with that pass rush where he was pressured 29 times and he scrambled a league record 497 yards during that game, according to Next Gen Stats.
What?
497 yards as far as side to side, back and forth.
That's
what
much.
That's what Next Gen Stats said. It was
497.
It said it was the most scramble yards in league history, along with the most pressures in recorded playoff history. He was still delivering on the mark passes. And Wildes, I think he's a better quarterback now than he was then. I think he is a more sophisticated quarterback than he was then, and I don't think the ankle is going to be a big problem.
All right, let's turn our attention to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts in line for a big payday. Jeffrey Lurie praising Hurts, saying, quote, "I don't think he has anything to prove. He's an MVP caliber quarterback, an incredible leader of the team on the field, off the field. He's 24 years old, incredibly mature, and most importantly, driven to be even better." Brew, does Jalen have anything left to prove?
Well, look, if I'm Jalen Hurts, I love hearing that from the owner when I'm expecting a huge contract extension, so good for him. But, yeah, he's got a lot to prove, and not just in the sense of until you win a Super Bowl, you haven't proven you can. That's not it. Look, I think Jim Kelly could have won a Super Bowl, Dan Marino, even though they didn't. All right, it's more of this. He is still so young. He's in his 3rd season. He's a year removed from really being a middling quarterback as far as passing the football. So I just haven't seen enough to say, oh, he's a finished product. He has 100%. Nothing left to prove. And here's the other thing, Nick. He can prove, and this is more of a league-wide thing, he would be the first running quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Like, I know Cam Newton got there and didn't win it, but he got to a Super Bowl. But this is a guy that, Nick, would be the first quarterback that you could argue he can run. Right, Kaepernick too. His running is as effective, if not more so, than his passing. And I think that would be huge for the game. And so, yeah, I definitely think he's got a lot to prove in this game.
I think it's undeniable. He has a lot to prove. I do not think he is viewed as a tier 1 or a tier 2 quarterback universally in this league. We know what the tier 1 quarterbacks are. We know who they are. It is Patrick Mahomes, and it is Patrick Mahomes on one leg. That is the only tier 1 quarterbacks in football. The next tier is Brew. Do you think he's viewed as highly as Joe Burrow? I do not. Do you think he's viewed as highly as Josh Allen? I do not. Do you think he's viewed as highly in many circles as Justin Herbert? I'm not sure. And I haven't heard anyone call him royalty. He's not viewed as highly as the prince who was promised. So then you have the next group of guys who are Lamar at this point in his career, I think Rodgers, Tua, Matt Stafford, who we have forgotten about even though he just won a Super Bowl. And I think that for Jalen, because he does not have the body of work prior to this year, that if in this game he falls flat, and especially because he also doesn't have a great playoff game under his belt. He's played 3 career playoff games. We can throw out last year's. They were overmatched. They're playing the Bucs fine. But even this year, when the team has been dominant, he has not been dominant. Now, again,
What do you want him to do?
Well, no, I'm not killing him for it because obviously the team has not needed a lot from him, so maybe he could have done more and they just didn't need it. But in this game, they're going to need it. Nobody views the Chiefs as an overwhelming defensive team. I actually think defense is a little underrated, but they're playing 3 rookie corners. They only have 1 defensive lineman that seems to get any national credit in Chris Jones, and he deserves it. If he doesn't perform well in this game, I would imagine a lot of people would be blaming, if they lose, they will probably be blaming his performance. And I think people will say, okay, so it was 1 year under these circumstances against a soft schedule. And so I do think he has a ton to prove. I agree with Bruce's point, Wildes, that the owner's accountant probably pulled the owner aside, like, buddy, I don't know if you want to say that publicly. Like, this is a salary cap sport. You're out here saying he's got nothing to prove. I mean, I know Nicole Lynn was probably thrilled, Jalen's agent, when she heard that quote. But a clutch client, yeah, it's true. But yeah, I mean, I think he has a lot to prove, Wildes.
So,
a lot.
Brew, the thing that I think is fascinating is the Mahomes storyline is kind of the opposite of the Jalen storyline, where Mahomes got hurt. He's like, I'm going to be good, and then the stats prove that he's good. Jalen, we've kind of ignored the injury, and he said to Elliott Shore-Parks on February 2nd, I'm getting there. I've made it clear this whole time. It's something I'm dealing with. And then Elliott says it's getting better with time. So that was February 2nd. So maybe it's gotten a little bit better. And then the stats show that he has been kind of dealing with it. Now, granted, he's never been behind in any of these playoff games. But still, prior to the injuries, this is 4 yards air touchdowns. This is Dusty's graphic that he said, quote, I'm getting nervous about this. Completion percentage down, touchdown interceptions down, passer ratings down. He's had a few long shots. Devontae had that catch that was not a catch.
It wasn't even a catch.
That's
the
still
thing
counted as a throw.
But I understand, but like
It was officially a catch, though.
I
It's
understand that,
officially a
but
catch.
if we're talking about a guy who going into this postseason, Brew, the concern I think was didn't play well in last year's postseason. Now in this postseason, through 2 games, he has thrown for fewer than 280 yards total, and 40 of those came on an incomplete pass. And so if that's ruled correctly, we're talking about 120 yards passing per game is what he's looking at.
Hurt.
And correct. And I do think the shoulder injury is very significant, but that has to play into how people analyze and break down this game and expect him to be able to play in this game, Brew.
Well, look, I don't think the ankle's going to be an issue for Mahomes, and I don't think the shoulder's going to be an issue for Hurts. Remember, we talked about it after they beat San Francisco when we said he ran, what was it, like 5 straight plays, it seemed like,
6,
where he ran the football, and he got stuck on the first one, right? And so I think he's just going to go play his game. But look, Jalen Hurts, it's never going to be that pretty. All right, I was watching a great documentary called The Kings last night in my hotel room on Showtime about Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, and Duran. It's fantastic. Check it out. But it talked about the difference between Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler. And Nick, I don't know if you heard of these guys. But
stop it.
Sugar Ray Leonard was so flashy and pretty that he got over, right? He had the benefit of the doubt, like Mahomes. Mahomes looks so good with the way he does it that he always gets the praise. Whereas Jalen Hurts is more like Hagler. And it doesn't always look flashy, and he just gets it done. And even when he's not injured, even when he's at his best, he's not running like Lamar. He's not running like even Josh Allen or Michael Vick. He's certainly not passing it like the better passers in the league, but he just gets it done. He just wins, and that's why Lurie referred to his character, his integrity, his work ethic, all the intangibles, because that's a huge part of Jalen Hurts' package.
Listen, Wildes, while Brew was kicking his feet up ordering room service, watching boxing documentaries, you know what you and I were doing?
Grinding the all 22.
Grinding the all 22. Yeah, exactly.
Not
Brew,
watching
it's
boxing.
Super Bowl week.
You gotta grind
Get it
that 22.
together. You're on
Grind it
vacation
up.
watching boxing docs from your
did that
glory
too.
years.
It all kicks off Super Bowl Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.